We come to one of my favorite fights in the tournament. We have Destoroyah versus Super Gudis. How formidable is Super Gudis? Well, Ultraman Great's energy attacks are capable of vaporizing kaiju with decent to top tier levels of durability, and here's Super Gudis just suffering minor damage. Up close, Super Gudis can also unleash this powerful attack, this wave of energy that seems to scramble with your senses while also hurting you. I'm not sure exactly what kind of attack it is, but it was enough to make Ultraman Great backpedal. Here's another shot of after Ultraman Great fired at Super Gudis at point blank. There are flames on him, but his skin, I know it's kind of hard to see. I apologize for the quality. But Super Gudis wasn't seriously injured by this. Super Gudis' most formidable, potent ability is being able to wrap you in this bubble of energy that can, well, seemingly warp reality or manipulate matter or space-time, because he shrinks Ultraman Great down and then absorbs him. And here we see now the size of like a cell or very, very tiny Ultraman Great still trapped in his bubble from inside Super Gudis' body. He's haunted by seemingly the sentient phantoms of the monsters he's fought throughout the series. But as I pointed out earlier, eventually Ultraman Great broke free, flew out of Super Gudis' head, and this in turn made Super Gudis explode. Still, Super Gudis is extremely dangerous, and I think he really does give Destoroyah one hell of a fight. But before I get to my verdict, let's talk about Destoroyah. I'm not going to be handling every single thing. I actually, years ago, wrote a more detailed kaiju analysis on Destoroyah. It's on Toho Kingdom. You can search for it. I did one on Space Godzilla as well, where I went into way more detail about this sort of stuff. I apologize in advance. The grammar may not be that great, so I hope that is okay. But anyway, back to my current analysis. Destoroyah is strong enough to just smack Godzilla around like he is a redheaded stepchild, and as a redhead, I can say that. His tail's also quite lethal. He can latch onto enemies and absorb their energy. Like here, he uses micro-oxygen to not only dissolve the flesh, but siphon energy. This is actually stated in the Japanese version of the film. One of Destoroyah's most dangerous powers is the laser horn, or horned katana. It sliced through Godzilla no problem, and had Destoroyah been a little closer, he would have chopped Godzilla completely in half, as he did here. Not only is he strong enough to push Godzilla around like he's nothing, he can also fly him around, his flight unimpeded by Godzilla's mass. He could tow Godzilla around like kind of like a toy. Let's talk about Destoroyah's oxygen destroyer beam. I know for years people kind of call this the micro-oxygen beam. It's actually directly stated in the movie that this is not the power of micro-oxygen. It's the power of the oxygen destroyer. It's an unknown type of destructive energy, and Destoroyah uses it quite well and is able to blast Godzilla off his feet. And even Godzilla, who was able to withstand Mechagodzilla's plasma grenade, Space Godzilla's Corona beams, he could get right back up from those attacks. Destoroyah's OD beam actually does blast him down, and even still, burning Godzilla, a stronger, more, I'd say, variant of Heisei Godzilla, is knocked on his butt, and it keeps him down for a while. Now, after a while, Godzilla does fire point-blank shots of his spiral blast into Destoroyah's chest. It does cause damage. What kind of devils? What kind of damage, you might ask? Well, Destoroyah vomits blood, for starters, and then after his chest carapace is blown open, Godzilla goes over and just starts ripping it further open. It's so severe that in this shot, if you look closely, you can see a gaping wound in the back of Destoroyah. Godzilla's spiral blast actually blasted a hole right through him. Destoroyah would eventually break down into smaller Destoroyah. He would quickly swarm burning Godzilla, but Godzilla made short work of them. Let's get to it, man. Later in the final, when things really start heating up, Godzilla's Spiral Blast becomes way, way more powerful, as demonstrated, as you can see by the spirals here. Destoroyah, I know this is a bit hard to see. Destoroyah doesn't just laugh these attacks off. In fact, they force him to retreat, but there is no shame in that. Destoroyah survived several consecutive hits from Godzilla's Spiral Blast with, damage, but he survived. And I think that's noteworthy. Now, why do I think Destoroyah wins this fight? It's less about the size of his final form, but what he is. He is a colony of microscopic, malevolent organisms. These beings who have been around since the Precambrian era. These guys can travel through their, maybe not their enemy per se, but their victims, and skeletize them within seconds. He could vaporize their organic tissue and reduce enemies to... he could turn all of Tokyo into a graveyard, as you can see. And that's why I think Destoroyah wins this fight. Super Gudis' best attack is shrinking you down and pulling you into his body, where he will essentially absorb you from within. You do not want to take Destoroyah into your body. That is the opposite thing to do. Super Gudis, let's say he does it. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, Super Gudis' best case scenario here is actually trapping Destoroyah in a spear in a bubble and bringing him into his body. That's still the worst thing you could do, because Destoroyah will